Hey, and welcome back to episode number 71 of the Brave Widow Show. Today, we get a different take on what it means to have lost your spouse and to be raising young kids. And today, we're going to talk with a young widower. We're going to talk with Ben Sperry, who gives us a unique take and perspective on what it means to be a young father, raising young children, and taking care of a wife who was diagnosed with cancer multiple times, which is obviously devastating. But he brings a unique perspective on being a widower and some words of wisdom that he has in living for the moment, living for the day, making new memories, and really just ensuring that you are taking care of yourself so that you can best take care of others. I think you're going to enjoy hearing what Ben has to say. So let me introduce you to him. Ben Sperry is from Jacksonville, Florida. He's a 46-year-old widower with a 10-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. His wife passed away August 31st, 2021 from metastatic breast cancer. All right, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Brave Widow podcast. I'm your host, Emily Jones. We help young widows heal their heart, find hope, and dream again for the future. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Brave Widow Show. Today, I have a special guest with me, Ben Sperry, and I'm excited for him to share his story and some of the insights he's learned along the way. So, Ben, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on today.
Definitely. Yeah. Like you said, my name is Ben Sperry. My story started in 2009, where I met my wife, Beth. We lived 2 blocks away from each other, and she was walking her sister's dog in front of my place, and we just ended up chatting. And then I got her number, and we just started talking, and took about 3 to 4 months before we actually met up, which was kind of weird that took that long, but because we talked a lot before that, and we only lived a couple blocks from each other. But once we started hanging out on a daily basis, it was inevitable. We were both people that we're both people that thought we would never ever get married, never have kids. And as soon as we started dating, air quotations, is within 3 months we already moved in with each other, we're not very spontaneous people, so it was kind of funny. And then within a year after that, we moved to a different city to be close to the beach, and just we could do it with our jobs to move. And then a year after that, we got married, and then a year after that, we had our first child, our boy, who's 10 years old now. And yeah, I mean, everything was normal and happy. And then in 2016, 3 years after we got married, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we went through that. We did a very good job on just getting through it, and day by day she went through chemo, radiation, mastectomy, hysterectomy, full mastectomy, just to be on the safe side for everything. And they said that everything went into remission after 7 months. And we thought, there we go, we got the rest of our lives. And about a month before everything shut down with the pandemic, she was just getting very nauseous. And so I think it was in March or February of 2019. And I ended up just driving her to the ER because she was just that stubborn. And they said 70% of her liver was filled with cancer, and her bones had cancer in it too. And she had to get a brain scan and all that stuff, which thank God was negative with the brain scan. But our world was kind of shattered, because you just hear stage 4 cancer. When it metastasized, you automatically just think, worst case scenario, I'm dying. But we still We were very positive people and just push through it and living day to day. Like I was telling you earlier before, we were just people that were used to living day to day and being thankful for what we have now, and not worrying too much about that final outcome. But my wife passed away on August 30th, 2021. And 3 to 4 months before that, she got really sick and it was just really hard for her to get out of bed. She kept working until the very end. She's a teacher for 21 years for ESE students, and she tried to do as much as possible with the kids, but a lot of it was hard. Our kids are 5 and 10 now. Like I said, we had the boy, and then she was diagnosed with cancer and had a hysterectomy, so we became foster parents, and we adopted our daughter, who's now 5, was 3 when my wife passed away. And yeah, I mean, August 30th, we had to go to Mayo Clinic here in Jacksonville, Florida, and to get a tube put in, she had to go under, and that just sent her body into shock. And they released her from the hospital, and I was driving her home, and when we got to the front door, she collapsed into my arms. Luckily, I was behind her, and I carried her into bed, and an hour and a half later, she had died in my arms. And that was, the worst day of my life, as I'm sure it is for most anybody that's lost a spouse or somebody they love. But so with having 2 kids, that's, in my opinion, it was challenging for me to lose. That was my one goal in life, was to grow old with my wife. That was my main goal in life, was to grow old with my wife and just raise our kids. But I think the biggest challenge and heartache that I've had is with the 2 kids and not being able to put myself in their shoes on what they're going through. My parents are still alive, and usually I'm pretty good about being able to do that, but I can't fathom and imagine. My 5-year-old is very vocal, and she talks about her mother every day, and cries, and is very open about talking. My 10-year-old never talks about his mother, and he was a mama's boy. That was his person. So that's been challenging, is just trying to be there and not push the envelope. I haven't pushed the envelope in 2 years. It's been 2 years and almost 2 months since she passed, and I still haven't pushed the envelope. We've done therapy, play therapy, regular, sit down, talk therapy and stuff, but which has had some benefits. But, I just think as a kid, I'm 46, it's hard for me to even remember what it's like to have those emotions. And it's totally different in today's times, in my opinion. But I think as a kid, you just want to have some normalcy in your life. And with especially my 10-year-old, he's not considered normal. So I don't think that's why he talks about it, in my opinion.
And he was pretty young when she was initially diagnosed with breast cancer, right?
Correct. Yeah, he was 16? He would have been 3 years old. So he doesn't remember too much about that on there. So yeah, I mean, he remembers bits and pieces of it, but not that much. But the second go around with everything she had to go through, obviously he remembers all that. And it was a lot. I think that's one of the things that you think of as soon as your significant other passes away, is like, you've already gone, you don't even realize you're going through trauma while they're alive, and grieving, like how much grief you're going through. You don't realize it's grief that you're going through while they're going through that, and they're here. And then you go through a whole nother round of grief when they pass. That's one thing I didn't even think of, but when you look back on it, you're like, that you definitely are going through a major grief that you don't even face, that you just like hold in for however long they're sick. And I would say with having children, it has kept me on my toes, and like I've had to be more active than I guess if I wouldn't have had children. I've definitely stayed busy. We've traveled. I'm a busybody, and we love the outdoors. So we're always going to the mountains. We're always going on trips to outdoor activities and stuff like that, and just traveling to new places I love adventures and trying to create new memories for them. Been doing. We went on a 15-day trip around the Great Lakes up in Michigan and Wisconsin and all those states I've never been to. But yeah, I would just say that, it's something you definitely, in my opinion, not that you become numb to everything because it's still constant, but you realize that you have to live, and you have a different appreciation on life. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think you really almost have a new lens or a different perspective in how you look at life. And I know, like, for me, I don't get agitated about stuff as much as I used to. I'm much more, tolerant and forgiving of people's behaviors and things that might have aggravated me in the past. And I
Mhm.
just savor each moment more. So I think you make an excellent point there. And I love that you are actively trying to create new memories with your kids and maybe even some new traditions of how you do things, and that you're taking really a proactive approach into healing and helping them as they continue to live.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing also, like having a different perspective on life, but I think you realize how important memories are because with thinking of my wife, that's all I have now is memories. So from like the smallest little idiosyncrasies to the biggest things that we did, it doesn't matter. They're all memories, but just creating those new things and with them. And for me, they're a lot more important now. Memories are definitely a lot more important to create those to have a lasting effect because in the end, it's what we have, is memories, in my opinion. So those become more amplified, more so than they did before, for sure,
Yeah.
I would say. So,
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's when I'm still trying to convince some of my kids of this, that experiences are more than
mhm.
things and more than
Yes.
gifts, like the trips and things at the end of the day, those are the things that we remember and we hold on to for sure. So I have to ask you, as a father of young children and someone who's trying to juggle it all, I'm assuming with work and caring for your wife, and then in losing her, what what advice would you give to people? Let's say they know someone who is in your situation. What would have been the best support, or what was a good experience for you that was the most helpful?
I would just say being present with, in my situation, like I said, my wife and I actually talked about like the final outcome of everything. Like, and I think that put a new look on our life. So I was more present and more caring. I would just recommend, I think like with what we went through 2 battles of cancer, the living day to day was very helpful for me. It definitely made me appreciate every day that I know it's very cliche, but living for the day and is very important. And obviously in the real world, it's good to look towards the future and like 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and everything like that. But when your significant other is going through something like that, really what matters is today. So I think that's one thing that was very helpful to us and not focusing too much on the final outcome. Yes, like I said, it was talked about, but it wasn't a constant thing that was on our mind because we were trying to just go do something simple together on a daily basis, like whether go to a new park. We try to hit where I live at. There's a lot of outdoor trails. There's a lot of outdoor stuff to do, and so we were constantly doing stuff like that. Um, but definitely, I think one thing that helped me out was doing um, like meditation. That's something I never did before, but I did a lot of breathing exercises, just to get myself grounded more. I did a lot of mantras, like of things that I needed to work on interpersonally to be a better person and a better husband, a better dad, a better, everything. Because we all need help, and just any things that can get you grounded are things that I definitely recommend.
Yeah, that's great. And we talked a little bit before we hit record about the importance of taking care of yourself so that you have even just the emotional and mental bandwidth to help take care of others, especially your kids as they have different levels of understanding and they're grieving in different
Mhm.
ways. But sometimes that's hard because as parents, we tend to put ourselves on the back burner and try to make sure that everyone else is taken care of before we release or we process the grief. Do you have any tips for people there or any suggestions on how to prioritize your own healing and grieving while still feeling like you're giving your family what they need?
I think the biggest thing that's been I can just speak personally about it is just not doing too much. I know it's funny to say that since I just started college classes, I'm working full time in, but and I think just saying no, uh, learning your boundaries. Boundaries is something that I've never ever thought about, but luckily I kind of grasped it like from early on in my grieving, of setting boundaries, of just saying that's not a priority of mine to people. And as harsh as it sounds, like, and not that you're trying to be mean to people, but setting boundaries with people, like your family, even, that you just have to do that to keep your sanity. And I think doing self checks with yourself, is a huge thing. Just to, you definitely, like I was telling you before you hit record, that it's the old cliche is if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. So you definitely, as selfish as it might sound, you have to take care of yourself before you could even take care of your kids, because otherwise it's just a slippery slope that you're going to go down where you're losing your control with your kid, like, your attitude with your kids. And it's just, they're a mirror of you that's just going to rebound and come right back to you and bite you. um so I think just remembering the things that you love, like I grew up surfing, so I always tried to make it a priority to go out surfing. That's something, like when I was taking care of my wife and the kids, because when my wife was going through cancer, I said, you just worry about yourself. That's all. That's what I told her to do. So for 2 years straight, that's like I took care of the kids as much as possible. Did everything at the house, and I did not care about doing that. But I lost a lot of like stuff that I love to do. Of course, because I didn't mind doing that, but you realize how much you need that stuff in your life, like the things that you love, like whether you like doing art or just reading a book, or an outdoor activity or sport or a hobby that you love. I think it's good to either find, like I play soccer, and that's like my therapy. I play on a team. I've played, for the past 2 years, every Sunday, and it's like that's my time to just go let it out and just like run and just not think of everything else that's going on in your life. It's good just to have, I guess you could call it escapism, but it's therapy in my opinion. Like when I go out on the ocean surfing, that's therapy to me, just to clear my head, not have the worries of whatever's going on in your life.
Yeah, I think that's extremely helpful, whether you're embracing past hobbies and things that you love to do, or discovering new ones, or just taking the time to engage in a hobby or something creative that actually helps work the same part of your brain that emotions are processed. So, those things are very much
Mhm.
like therapy, to your point, and doing that. Um, as you've thought about now your new future and what that looks like, sounds like lots of soccer and surfing, which is exciting. But what inspired you to go back to school at 46 years old, looking at a new college degree? Like, what was your inspiration there?
I mean, I've always wanted to go back to. I've done art my whole life. I went to art school when I was younger, and I think me personally, I used like weighing the pros and cons of that is I have two kids that have, school has summers off, it has so many breaks. If I could have a job where I am matching that schedule, that's a pro of it. But also, just I think the one thing that I notice is like, from my perspective, is it felt like I was starting from scratch all over again. Here I was, I shared my life with somebody we were together for 13 years. Um, you become in sync with that person. And when that other person's no longer physically there, you're, in my opinion, like I was starting from scratch as a new person. Like I had been working with the same company for 15 years, and I was just like, I want something more gratifying. I've always wanted something more gratifying, like where I feel like I'm giving something more to the world, to the community. And that was just a simple way of doing it. That was a pro for me. Like, if I could teach kids art, um, that's a beautiful thing. And also like, little things to help them, guide them to be a better human being in this world. So as compared to working for a huge insurance company, it's like it's way more gratifying in my opinion. So that was a huge thing. And just like I said, it's a process, but it's also, and that's why one thing I definitely recommend to anybody that is going through grief and going through all these new feelings and all this whole new life is you are starting from scratch in most situations. Why not take your time, and why not take the right steps? It's not a sprint. This is a marathon, in my opinion. And I definitely think, I'm 2 years out, August 30th of this year, from when I lost my wife. And I'm just that type of person that I believe that you should take your time to make sure you think things through, especially when you're starting a whole new chapter of your book that you still have.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was married almost right at 20 years, and it's hard when you've spent, 10 plus years with someone. That's a significant chunk of your adult life. And it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
think about starting over and having a new future. And you've thought about a future together for so long. It's like, I don't even know what I would want on my own. So it does take time to figure that out. But I love that you're embracing things that you've enjoyed in the past, and that you're exploring things that you want to do for your future. I really just want to give you kudos. It sounds like you've really tried to do a lot of things proactively to help heal and to help figure out, what that future path is going to look like. And some people are afraid to do that. So I think it's great that you've done that.
I mean, I definitely think that's important to kind of, obviously not jump into the pool without knowing how to swim, but like just slowly putting your foot out there in water to just do things that you've never done before. I think that's such an important part of life. It just, in aspects of, just like I was saying, creating new memories, and memories are usually things that you've never done before, that you remember very well. But yeah, I definitely think it's important to try new things, because this is a new you, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Definitely agree. Well, Ben, I have another question about being a widowed father. I think most widows that we know are overwhelmingly women, and sometimes mothers. And so you don't often see a young father as a widower, but are there any unique challenges or things that you've seen, or any words of advice that you would give to other young guys that are trying to be dads to kids that are still at home and maybe facing some unique challenges that we women don't necessarily see?
yeah, I mean, I think, like, just, I keep saying from my perspective, because It's all I have. But I think the thing I've tried to do from me is I've tried to be both roles at certain times, like be the mother and be the father. My wife was just very I'm people say that I'm patient, but I'm really not that patient. But my wife was just very graceful, very patient, very a lot more caring than I am. So I've tried to be that person. Like it takes a lot of being conscious of, and trust me, I hardly ever get it right, but it's something that you have to be a lot more conscious than you normally would, is my recommendation. And it's hard. And for lack of better words, it sucks because you're stepping out of like comfort zones of how you're used to being the father figure, and and that's how it was for so long since we had children. You carried those roles, and you balanced them, and you both hit on all cylinders together. But you have to have that balance when that other person's not there. Is definitely something that's been challenging, I would say, to this day. And it's something I try to be conscious of, and I'm not enough, but I definitely think of a lot. Um, like I think just the biggest thing that I always think of, is like being a father, a solo father of two kids, is just being present and just slowing down some. And I can just speak from my perspective is that I'm a person that's always been go, 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 go. Through this, like even the first 2 years, the first year especially is like, I don't like to put times on things, but like I've just had to like slow down some. Um, like with after school, for example, normally I would take him to go do something, but like now, like we just need a break, like just to slow down and just stop for a second and just like kind of have like a just relax, something I'm not used to doing. But I mean, being present is probably the biggest thing that's important as a single solo father of two kids is probably the biggest recommendation I have, because your time is worth more than anything.
Yeah, that's
I
a
would say.
great point. And I think we try to be both parental figures and, I know gender roles is a hot topic in our culture
Yeah.
today, but regardless of people's views on that, I think, most people could acknowledge you and your spouse have strengths and weaknesses most often that the
Hmm.
other does not. So, to your point, we have to be very conscious of trying to still provide either those same things or same instruction. My husband was much more of the disciplinarian and the staying
Hmm.
on top of the kids to make sure they get things done. And I hate micromanaging people. I hate micromanaging the kids, but sometimes it has to be done for them to get those things done. So you're right, it is takes much more effort, but sometimes that's what's needed, or else they may not end up being well balanced and rounded out kids. And it is hard for the high achievers out there to reduce the expectations on yourself, to put in boundaries, to say, I don't need to do all the things. We don't need to go to all the places. That is really difficult, but I know for me, it was a saving grace, especially in those early days.
Oh yeah, I remember so many days I was just like, my kids have been fed and they're alive. That's good. That's perfect for me. Like I had to be like, I set my standards on that. Like a lot of days that my kids are loved, fed, and they're alive. Like good. Like that was enough for me. Just and you slowly start to step out of that to you know when you start stepping out of the fog, then you start to realize that I need to start doing this, and you just do babies. That's what I'm talking about, baby steps. Like just don't exert yourself too much. Don't stretch yourself too thin, um, because it's all just going to backfire on you. You still have residual emotions on everything. Like I was telling you before we hit record, my wife's birthday's tomorrow, and I've been feeling, emotional this week, and and I couldn't put my finger on. Of course, I should have known it was because her birthday is tomorrow, but you don't think that day is going to affect you over to you, but it does. There's a lot of subconscious stuff that still affects you that you just don't even realize. And if you exert yourself, you're going to get pushed over the limit a lot easier than most people, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's sometimes those unexpected things or unanticipated things that surprise us the most and can be challenging, like those dates that are coming up that we subconsciously think about, but maybe haven't consciously prepared for. So, well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on today and being willing to share your story. Are there any final words of wisdom or any pieces of encouragement that you would leave people with?
Yeah, I mean, like I was telling you before, just, life is short, and as cliche as that is, and just be thankful for the time that we've had with each other, and be thankful for the time that we still have, and, love your children as much as possible, and just love life as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Brave Widow podcast. I would love to help you take your next step, whether that's healing your heart, finding hope, or achieving your dreams for the future. Do you need a safe space to connect with other like-minded widows? Do you wish you had how-tos for getting through the next steps in your journey, organizing your life, or moving through grief? What about live calls where you get answers to your burning questions? The Brave Widow membership community is just what you need. Inside, you'll find courses to help guide you, a community of other widows to connect with, live coaching and Q&A calls, and small group coaching where you can work on what matters most to you. Learn how to heal your heart, find hope, reclaim joy, and dream again for the future. It is possible. Head on over to bravewidow.com to learn more.